A continuación, Lección Educativa de Inglés, séptimo grado. Bloque 2. Lengua escrita, escritura. Secuencia 10. Let's go to the theater. Programa 22. The curtain is open. Expectativa de logro. Distingue, habla de la historia del teatro.
Hola, en esta lección educativa haremos un pequeño estudio del teatro y un breve recorrido por la historia del mismo. Theater is the branch of performing arts related to acting, which represents stories in front of an audience using a combination of speech, gestures, set design, music, sound, and performance. It is also the literary genre that includes works conceived on stage before an audience. In addition to the common narrative, dialogue style, theater also takes other forms such as opera, ballet, mime, Chinese opera, and pantomime. Historical approach. Most studies consider that the origins of theater should be sought in the evolution of magical rituals related to hunting. After the introduction of music and dance, they embarked on an authentic dramatic ceremonies where the gods were worshipped and the spiritual principles of the community were expressed. Ancient Egypt. Dramas about the death and resurrection of Osiris were already performed in ancient Egypt. The theater begins by means of masks and dramatizations with them. Greece. In the course of the 5th century before Christ, during the classical age of Greece, the traditional models of tragedy and comedy were established, and the playwrights Aeschylus and Sophocles. Roman theater. Roman theaters inherited the fundamental features of the Greeks, although they introduced certain distinctive elements. American civilizations. In pre-Hispanic American cultures, the theater acquired a remarkable development, particularly among the Mayans. One of the most representative works of the Mayan theater is the Quiché drama, Rabinal Aki. The Mayan theater was partially linked to the agricultural cycles and the epic of its historical events. And between the Aztecs and the Incas, societies that, in correspondence with their theocratic structure, gave their theatrical activities an eminently warrior and religious nuance. Theater in the UK. Period of exceptional splendor of the dramatic genre, among which the Londoner The Globe stood out, where William Shakespeare presented his works. To conclude with the educational lesson, let us now look at a small play to perform at school.
Excuse me, madam, but it seems to me, unless I'm mistaken, that I met you somewhere before.
I too, sir. It seems to me that I've met you somewhere before.
Was it by any chance at Manchester that I caught a glimpse of you, madam?
That is very possible. I am originally from the city of Manchester, but I do not have a good memory, sir. I cannot say whether it was there that I got a glimpse of you or not.
Good God, that is serious. I do am originally from the city of Manchester, madam.
That is curious.
Isn't that curious? Only I, madam. I left the city of Manchester about 5 weeks ago.
That is curious. What a bizarre coincidence. I too, sir. I have left the city of Manchester about 5 weeks ago.
Madam, I took the 8:30 morning train, which arrives in London at 4:45.
That is curious. How very bizarre. And what a coincidence. I took the same train, sir. I too.
Good Lord, how curious. Perhaps then, madam, it was on the train that I saw you.
It is indeed possible. That is not unlikely. It is possible, and after all, why not? But I do not recall it, sir.
I travel second class, madam. There is no second class in England, but I always travel second class.
That is curious, how very bizarre, and what a coincidence. I too, sir, I travel second class.
How curious that is. Perhaps we did meet on second class, my dear lady.
That is certainly possible, and it's not at all unlikely, but I do not remember very well, my dear sir.
My seat was in coach number 8, compartment 6, my dear lady.
How curious that is. My seat was also in coach number 8, compartment 6, my dear sir.
How curious that is. And what a bizarre coincidence. Perhaps we did meet on compartment 6, my dear lady.
It is indeed possible, after all, but I do not recall it, my dear sir.
To tell the truth, my dear lady, I do not remember it either, but it is possible that we caught a glimpse of each other there. And when I think of it, it seems to me even very likely.
Oh, truly. Of course, truly, my sir.
How curious it is. I had seat number 3 next to the window, my dear lady.
Oh, good Lord, how curious and bizarre. I have seat number 6 next to the window, across from you, my dear sir.
Good God, how curious that is, and what a coincidence. We were there sitting, facing each other, my dear lady. And it is there that we must have seen each other.
How curious that is. And what a coincidence. But I do not recall it, sir.
To tell the truth, my dear lady, I do not remember it either. It is very possible that we saw each other on that occasion.
It is true, but I'm not at all sure of it, sir.
Dear Madame, were you not the lady who asked me to place her suitcase in the luggage rack and who thanked me and gave me permission to smoke?
But of course, that must have been I, sir. What a coincidence. What a coincidence and how curious.
How curious it is. How bizarre. What a coincidence. And well, it was perhaps on that moment that we came to know each other, Madam.
How curious it is, and what a coincidence. It isn't impossible, my dear sir. However, I do not believe that I recall it.
Nor do I, madam. Since coming to London, I have resided in Broomfield Street, my dear lady.
How curious that is! How bizarre! I too, since coming to London, have resided in Broomfield Street, my dear sir.
How curious it is. Well then, perhaps we have seen each other in the Broomfield Street, my dear lady.
How curious that is! How bizarre! It is indeed possible, after all, but I do not recall it, my dear sir.
I reside at number 19, my dear lady.
How curious that is! I also reside at number 19, my dear sir.
Well then. Perhaps in that house we have seen each other, my dear lady.
It is indeed possible, but I do not recall it, dear sir.
My flat is on the 5th floor, my dear lady.
How curious it is! Good Lord, how bizarre! And what a coincidence! I too reside on the 5th floor in flat number 8, dear sir.
How curious it is, how curious it is, how curious it is. And what a coincidence. You know, in my bedroom there is a bed, and it's covered with a green eiderdown. This room, with the bed and the green eiderdown, is at the end of the corridor between the WC and the bookcase, dear lady.
What a coincidence, good Lord, what a coincidence. My bedroom, too, has a bed with a green eiderdown and is at the end of the corridor between the WC, dear sir, and the bookcase.
How bizarre, curious, strange. Then, we live in the same room, and we sleep in the same bed, dear lady. It is perhaps there that we have met.
How curious it is, and what a coincidence. It is indeed possible that we have met there, and perhaps even last night. But I do not recall it, my dear sir.
I have a little girl, my little daughter. She lives with me, dear lady. She is 2 years old. She is blonde. She has a white eye and a red eye. She is very pretty. Her name is Alice, dear lady.
What a bizarre coincidence. I too have a little girl. She is 2 years old, has a white eye and a red eye. She is very pretty, and her name is Alice too, dear sir.
How curious it is, and what a coincidence, and bizarre. Perhaps they are the same, dear lady.
How curious it is. It is indeed possible, dear sir.
Then, dear lady, I believe that there can be no doubt about it. We have seen each other before, and you are my own wife. Elizabeth, I have found you again.
John, it's you, darling.